live. Well, how about this? The very first official ISOOSI Tuesday chat with Carlos, Bill Slawski, Erik Stafford, and myself, Ammon Johns.
All right, man. So cool. I say we kick things off here. It sounds like you guys want to talk about link building. I'm cool with that. I know that Carlos and his side of the business do a ton of that stuff, and I've got some questions that I haven't been brave enough to ask Carlos, so maybe I'll just ask all you guys. I'm sure your answer will be just as technical as his.
It does seem to me that it's a thing people have become really scared of. That link building, because of some of the penalties for bad link building, has got such a bad rep now. You know, people are scared of doing it. And that shouldn't be happening because links are still a vital part of Google's algorithm. It's still about site.
Yeah, I think that it does have a bad rep, but I also think that just based on all the stuff that's happened over the past year and a half with Google, people just don't know what the hell to do. You know, I think people are, you know, and Carlos can speak to this probably a little bit, but, you know, we work with a bunch of different clients, and we do link building for them, and sometimes we'll work with publishers that they don't, you know, should they be the links that we're buying on behalf of our clients in the outreach that we're doing, should they be follow links? Should they be no follow links? What should those percentages look like? Do the no follow links pass any actual signal, or do you just want them in there to kind of create a good percentage so that it looks good for Google? I mean, I think people really just have no idea. I mean, Carlos, am I on track with that at all, or?
Yeah, it's. I mean, Eric's kind of talking about a few particular clients where, you know, obviously we deal with large clients, and some of them, you know, there's different departments within the company, and you know, we interface with a particular group, like say the marketing, and there'll be other divisions within the company that just don't have a clue about, you know, what to ask for when placing banners, for example. So I think what Eric's kind of hinting on is, you know, this one particular example where there was a relationship built between the client and a big sports team, for example, and they went out and got banners and links and some, you know, on this extremely popular website, but obviously they didn't have any no follows on. You know, I think it'd be safe to, you know, kind of give this example. It was the NHL's website, right? And there was banners on there going to the client's website, but the division within the company didn't know to ask for, you know, to specify it to be a no follow. And the publisher, NHL, you know, have got banners all over their website, not that are just followed links. So I think what Eric's getting at is, does that hurt the advertiser who's getting the link, who's not knowledgeable enough to ask for the no follow, or is it going to hurt the publisher who is, again, unaware? And it's kind of, you know, over the last 2 or 3 years, it's a, pardon my French, you know, it's like a bit of a shit show of what's going on. Nobody, you know, there's a lot of people not knowing the rules, if you will. So, I mean, I know how I would answer that. I mean, I think it's safe to say that it's going to probably, you know, hurt the advertiser as well as the publisher if Google finds those particular instances.
Yeah.
I mean, there's examples I could give here of where I know that's happened. So it's, you know, I think what Eric's getting at is, it's just for folks who don't know, and there's a lot of, you know, companies out there, and there's a lot of publisher big websites that do have all this advertising, that just don't know how to do it properly. And that can hurt the advertiser, and it can hurt themselves.
It's a thing that people have struggled with as long as there's been linking algorithms. You know, we knew that Google wanted links, and people initially tried to throw as many links censored thing in any way they could. And the early forms of this were most commonly, you know, blog spamming, which just got to be so ridiculous that if you think of it, one of the most essential pieces of software for a blog now is anti-spam. It's the first thing you need. You've got blogs who've had to turn off comments because of the amount of links being shoved into their feeds. Link building is a thing that, you know, it's been a problem as long as it's been an issue for SEO. The thing is that good links, even back then, are exactly the same as good links today. But as Google have got better at trying to filter out the crap, they've also had to make some tough calls, and it does mean that links that they were more lenient about in the past now won't count. And where it might be counting some by accident, it had to put in a kind of anti-weighting filter. So if it spots a lot of bad links, it automatically tries to count with a negative effect. But it's a guesstimate, and this is the problem. If you've got a lot of bad links, Google's guesstimate of how much effect they're having and how much negative it puts on your site might be bigger than the actual positive effect of the links. So no-follow is essential to kind of get away from that. If Google knows those are no-followed, it's not having to estimate how much to take off of your weighting for it. It knows they're not counting, so your actual links out there that are followed are good. It's not that no-follow, you know, it's not that you're going to be killed by having advertising. You're more likely to suffer the effect of, you know, Google deciding too much of your page is ads and demoting your content that way than you are to suffer the real bad problems with the links. But I would say that, you know, using no-follow helps you determine this link is deliberate, these links aren't. These links are incidental. We are not giving them a citation. They just happen to be there. All user-generated content, you should be, you know, no-following those links.
So let me ask you this: would you guys all agree that publishers that post follow links, would you be concerned about that? If you're you know, doing work for clients and they want to advertise on sites and those sites aren't clued in and they're posting follow links, would that raise red flags for all you guys?
Why should it?
There's a balance. It depends what else is being done on those platforms. If those platforms, because their follow links are being jumped on by spammers, and therefore a lot of their links are going out to crap sites you don't want to be associated with,
then yes, you would worry.
Tough luck, you have associated your links. One of the early forms for the no-follow, what we used to call it, was a link condom. That's pretty much how you want to think about it. It stops infection passing from somebody who's a little bit loose with their linkage.
Right. If we go back to the very early days of the web, a link was intended as a reference, not an endorsement. And the people who worked on putting the web together said that clearly when it came to Google deciding that PageRank was a good thing to use to rank pages. It all of a sudden became a commodity. And when links became a commodity, they became open to being abused, being manipulated. There's been a lot of uncertainty for a long time as to what's the value of getting a link from somewhere. What's the value of placing a link to somewhere? When I started working on web pages and there was no PageRank, our decisions on where to link to came in from an analysis or an assessment of, are we providing value to the people who come and read our site by linking out to this other site? Do we trust these people with our visitors, our guests? Are people going to come back to our site once they visit one of these other sites because they've decided these people are doing a great job of providing resources, useful information, stuff that matters to me? I'm not sure that analysis quite goes on as well or happens to that level at this point, which is probably a shame.
Okay. Interesting. I was just going to say, Bill, we talked last week just about how Google's moving more towards trying to create a much more natural and organic sort of conversation. And it sounds like that's what you're saying in terms of your original link building efforts way back in 1942. Was that it was just much more, organic and relevant, and it led to real visitors rather than the system kind of being manipulated and abused, right?
Right.
It was 1944, not 1942, eh, Bill? I'll stick up, buddy. Don't you worry.
I don't want to belabor this point, but I find this stuff very interesting and probably a little more technical and a little over my head. I am more of a branding and conversion sort of guy, but let me ask you guys this: Do no-follow links pass any sort of signal at all, or, I mean, are people just kind of using them to kind of keep those percentages correct? Does that make sense?
If you think about the way the robots exclusion protocol works, where you've got no follow for a whole page, the idea of the no follow tag, going in was to kind of be very, very granular, to just say, just this doesn't want to be followed. So it works on a similar kind of basis to the robots protocols, but on a granular level, link by link. The problem is that some people are so scared of, their links now that you've got people accepting guest posts and no following the entire page, the entire site. And I think sometimes that's completely the wrong thing to do. If you're saying none of your content is editorial, you will send in the signal out that, do you know what, all of our content is rubbish. Any of it could be complete nonsense. Nothing we say is important.
Yeah.
And I think that's the wrong thing to do as well.
I mean, this goes back to what I was saying before about the whole confusion. It's like what Bill said. Back before Google, links were done because more of a reference. When things, it was, that you'll find this interesting on this particular subject. And then when, their paper came out in 98 or whenever it was, 99, I mean, they became a commodity. It's like, they gave a blueprint of how they were going to rank things. And a lot of it all stemmed around links. So it's kind of, I understand that the mess was kind of created, but I think that this whole thing about no followed links is just caused such a confusion, and it just doesn't seem to be getting any better. But you bring up a good point, Eric, about I think you're bringing that up because we've had these discussions with clients, and our link building activities have changed drastically. And we're doing a lot of kind of going on to what we're doing now is we're thinking of a lot more creative ways of getting links in. Say that again, Terry.
Attract links. Don't build links. Don't
exactly. So we have a huge manufacturing client, big aluminum. I say aluminium. That's how we say it, Barrie, right?
That's it. Aluminium.
Yeah.
Aluminum's
a huge, one of the biggest ones in the world, and we'd been, doing. I'm not going to mention the name because they may still have some links out there from a while ago. But anyway, to cut a long story short, we've totally changed our strategy, and over the last few years, been kind of thinking of much more creative ways to attract links. One example is we came up with an engineering project, like a competition, that was a design competition that was put out to all the universities in the US, where engineering departments within universities could, get their students could kind of submit projects. Well, ended up, 1,000 really good references, citations from all these different engineering departments all over the country, all kind of, pointing to this particular competition and engineering page. And it's things like that. You've got to think of creative ways now, I feel, to still attract links, but you're not doing it in terms of just going out and trying to either purchase or get them.
The thing is as well, Eric, I mean, if you dumb it down, I mean, depending on who you're talking to or who's going to be watching this, If you gave people two options, you gave them an option of a site that's got metrics like domain authority 90 odd, page rank 8, relevant to them, and they can have a no followed link on that site, or they can have a page rank 2, domain authority 36, crappy blog that's followed. What do you want? And there's so many numbnuts out there that are going to jump all over that piece of crap link because it's got page rank juice flowing through it, instead of thinking about the site that's relevant to them and it's going to bring some traffic, bring some audience, and bring some engagement. But that's the problem that you've got.
Exactly, and the metrics don't even say if something's got a penalty. I mean, they could have a domain authority 80, page rank whatever. Well, forget the page rank.
Exactly, yeah.
That's useless, but the domain authority gives you no inkling of what kind of history they've been doing and what tactics, or if they've had a penalty.
That's the new metric that the cookie cutters run off.
Mm-hmm. One of the best links I've ever built was on a Eastern European classified website that led to 3 or 4 clients for the client I was building links for that brought them regular business every month for 2-3 years at the very least, that sustained the business because they were doing a significant amount of volume. Each of those clients was involved in like 5 to 20 transactions a month.
Wow.
You know, no page rank. Well, this was before there was page rank. But regardless, it wasn't a page that was linked to in many places. It wasn't a page that even got a lot of links to it or a lot of traffic. But it reached the right people.
Right link in the right spot.
Yeah.
I don't hang out on a lot of Eastern European dating sites, but I have seen 20 to 30 of them just for research purposes, and I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that link.
It was a business classified site, and the people were creating companies to ship cargo around the world, and they needed legal services that were relevant to that. And you know, you got to get your olives from Greece to Panama on a regular basis. So they'd create a new company every time they had a new shipment.
You know, I think, Carlos, in terms of what you were saying about just creating intelligent links, right, and encouraging or fostering natural links, that's really part of the reason that the ISOOSI research engine has been so successful, right? I know that you and Ammon have had tons of discussions about, you know, which links should be followed, which should be no follow, and how is that going to work best, not only for the users, but also from an SEO standpoint. And if you guys have to discuss it in such detail, where would you recommend normal, everyday, average business owners go to find resources in terms of what's acceptable and what's going to work? Because it seems that publishers don't really know, advertisers don't really know. It seems like it's all just very much in a state of flux. And so what would you guys recommend that some guy who owns maybe 3 or 4 restaurants in Wichita, Kansas, where would he go to find the correct information about this? Or, you know, an SEO that maybe isn't clued in, like a web design company that just does a little SEO on the side and has clients that are like chiropractors or real estate agents. What would you recommend people do to really get up to speed on this stuff?
The very, very first resource is to be honest with yourself. Google is trying to create a documentary, and you're that annoying guy in the office who, knowing that they're filming your company, is trying to make everyone wear their best suits, is trying to make the whole company not look like it actually is at all, which is spoiling Google's documentary. They're trying to document what is. It's like in science when you're trying to measure certain things, actually observing a thing changes it. especially on the subatomic level where you've got to bounce something off it to detect it, and it completely ruins it. What you're doing as an SEO is often spoiling that documentary, and you've got to have that bit of balance. Instead of having everyone in your company in branded suits with logos all over them, and oh look, we can mention 6 of our clients and they'll pay us $1,000, and it's all over these suits. It looks ridiculous. It doesn't put you in a good light. So think about what you're doing as the very first thing that you do. There was an article I wrote years ago about the real links and how they apply in the real world, and I mentioned going shopping during a lunchtime one day, and it was when I was working in IT briefly. Oh, painful days. I won't go too much into that. But when they call the IT technician to change the printer, Tony, you know you're in trouble. The idea was I went out in a lunchtime to buy basically a kind of modem attachment for my mobile phone in those early days when they weren't smartphones. And the first shop I went to was one of the big chains. It didn't have it. And, okay, they don't have it, they can order it. I said, thank you, but, I'm just trying to grab it in my lunchtime. If I'd waited to the weekend, I'd have gone to the main electronic area of London. There's a place called Tottenham Court Road. It's got so many electrical shops. Everything's there. That's where I'd have gone. It's near my home. I'm trying to do it in a lunchtime, so I'm only interested in somebody who's got it now. They didn't have it. Thank you very much. Anywhere that might have it, they recommend a sister company. It's one of these ones, they're both owned by the same shareholders. It's an affiliate link. They've got an affiliate. It's somebody they're connected with. But it's okay, I'll go there and check. So I go there. They don't have it either. The salesman is pushy. He's one of those ones that read those books on the web in the early days. Don't link out to anybody. Don't pretend that there is no other supplier in the world. Your customer won't find them if you don't link them. So just don't mention anybody else. Keep them there, So he doesn't have it. He's not going to tell me about anyone else that's got it. And he wants to, put it in an order and it will come in next week. I don't want to wait till next week. I can get it any time on the weekend. I know I can. I'm just trying to find out if you got it today. There's either a sale today or there's no sale at all. No, that concept. So, well, further down the road I come to a smaller shop. Now this guy didn't have it. Okay, no problem. He mentions a couple of other places, and one of these places, a little place on the corner, very small but very sort of specialist stuff. I got the product. Now the thing is, that third shop, the one who didn't have it but knew where I could get it and sent me to the right place, got so much business off of me in the next 6 months. And the reason for that is I knew I could trust him to serve me. He wasn't interested in my money, he was interested in my custom and in my relationship. Now those recommendations, those referrals of other shops, those are links. And you need to understand when you're building links, you're building your reputation. Who you link to says more about you than any amount of words you say about yourself. That's the thing that every small business should be links.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. That really works for me, Ammon. I know that I go to the farmer's market a lot, right, because we're on this organic food and really eating really well, and so we go to the farmer's market a lot, and there's certain vendors at the farmer's market who, if you don't have the extra $1, you're not going to get the extra thing of corn, but then there's others who look at you and see that you're going every single week, and they see how outgoing you are and how many people you talk to, and they'll not only give you the corn, but they'll say, hey, you should try this papaya as well, because they know. They just know. It's just smart business, right? I mean, people have been doing it for hundreds of years. That's a really good analogy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Very cool.
It's one of the reasons I still recommend anybody involved in any kind of internet marketing, however small, however big, read the Clue Train Manifesto. It's available for free at cluetrain.com, but it's all about the fact that markets are relationships between people. And marketing tried to automate that, but that's not what markets are. It's all about the relationships you build, the whole idea of brand is to give somebody that feeling about your company that you have about a merchant, a local merchant, a guy that you have a relationship with. All of it is trying to get back to that basic of understanding markets. All shopping is conversation, and your relationship is much more important than your money.
The Clue Train Manifesto, right?
The other important thing about that Clue Train Manifesto that they stress is that the conversation about your business is going to happen anyway. So you might as well be a participant in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that touches on branding and the fact that just how social media has really changed who really can own the brand, right?
Right.
So I have another question for you guys that's a little bit a different vein, but I get asked this a lot. Generally, when I get asked this, I either forward the email to Carlos or I yank him into the conversation, but it seems to me in conversations that are relating to SEO, the question I get asked the most these days is, how do I bounce back from penalties? And I know that Carlos and the guys have worked with a lot of clients who have come on board recently who, you know, I mean, I can't say that they were working with SEOs that did bad things. I can't say that, you know, a lot of the clients that we're getting now, the stuff that was being done by everyone, you know, 5 years ago.
Not everyone, or everyone would be penalized.
Right. Well, that's a good point.
So let's make a distinction.
No, that's a really good point.
Almost everyone who has been hit by a penalty did something only because it was working. No future proofing. That's what SEOs really do. They future proof. These guys had no fucking plan because all they do is regurgitate everything that's written on blogs and sell it to clients.
Yep. That's
It's
a really
what
good point.
makes our industry a joke, actually. You know, that guys are selling service, and at the same time, they're in a forum asking how to do that frickin' service.
Yeah.
You know, that's a problem, and that's where it starts. And, you know,
I
laugh because a lot of people in the dojo, they came to us crying because members sold them services that fucked them. And it was we were all along saying, don't do these. But they worked at the time. Well, we told you it was working. We didn't tell you anything different. We gave you the opportunity to make a decision whether this was long-term or short-term.
Well,
you went for short-term. You were lucky it lasted as long as it did.
Teddy, come off the fence and tell us how you really think.
Yeah, right. Don't hold back. Don't hold back. Hey, you know, I think you've got a good point, Terry, but I do think that what is acceptable has changed and is constantly changing, and there's a lot of tactics that were generally thought to be acceptable. I guess what I'm saying is, as someone who is not an SEO, it seems to me that there were, I don't know if you would call them general practices, but it seems to me that there were things that everyone I ran into who did SEO, including some really respectable people, all did, you know, some of these things where nowadays...
It's like what Steve posted in the question and answers there. I don't know if you're looking on the question and answers, but Steve Weidman had written something there about, you know, the anchor text and kind of optimizing. You know, I mean, that was kind of a widely done thing, and now it's kind of like people are still building links like, you know, like it was 2005, are still doing the same, but they're trying to get the balance right. It's all about, you know, all right, don't just do 100% of them with your terms, but, you know, have some with click here and the web address in it. And the fact is, if you're doing that, even trying to make it look natural, even though it's not natural, you know, Google's going to find a way of finding out that it's not natural, in my opinion. So I think they're going about it, you know, people who are still doing that and trying to get that balance and say, all right, you know, X% has to be your money terms, and, you know, another X% has to be click here and the web address. If you're analyzing it like that, trying to get that mix right, you're just asking for trouble.
I think that's silly. I think that's completely ridiculous. So 20% of your links are the naked URL. 10% of your links are click here or read more. It's ignores the fact that people tend to use anchor text and links, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's the fact that people might do it using the same terms over and over and over.
I disagree, Bill.
But I wrote a post this morning looking at a Google patent. It's from back in 2004, and it says we're looking at the text around links. We're looking at the rarest word in that associated text, and we're seeing what the context is. How many other links to that page use the same or very similar anchor text, and the words around the link don't have a relevant context. And if they don't, we're going to ignore those links. The hell with them. It doesn't matter whether you use read more or click here or the naked URL or anchor text for your the keyword you're trying to optimize for. If your weight loss link is in the middle of a page about ballet, it's just not in context.
I don't know. Have you seen a fat ballet?
Okay, good point.
Actually, probably the most unnatural text you'll find in an anchor is keywords, because when Google came out and made the text in a link so important, we actually had to convince people to use something other than click here, or it's not natural for people to use keywords in a link.
But I wanted to telegraph to people what the link was, build some confidence in their clicking on it to give them an idea of what they were going to find on the other page.
I think that's only smart.
Read more doesn't do that, but if the page
that's not natural.
At least people.
I don't know, Terry. You know, having that text as an identifier within the link was back in the patent or whatever, back in '98. I'm sure that's always been.
I think I'm with Bill on this one. I think some of this comes down as well to best practices for actual people that are using the websites. And I think from a marketing standpoint, it's always good to let people know what they can expect and sell the next step.
Right.
Do you know what? We're wasting our time with this conversation because it all comes back to what we all agreed with earlier. You shouldn't be building links. You should be attracting links.
Yeah.
If you're telling people what text to put in there, you're building links. You've done it wrong. The whole point is to have something they want to link to. They come up with their own text. They decide how to link to it.
They do the work for it.
Instead of going through this wonderful thing of trying to pretend to be natural, guess what? It suddenly is. Just attract the link. Don't build it. Don't tell people how to link to it. Just provide the means.
Well, what Bill has typed here into what Bill has typed here into the group chat, I think it touches on my question that I don't know that we've really answered. He says it's amazing how many people join forums as self-proclaimed SEO experts and then ask basic SEO questions. And that touches on the fact that anyone on the internet can position themselves as an expert. It's not difficult to do. And so how does a small business owner distinguish between what the hell is going to work for them today in this environment? That's my question.
It's partly common sense. It's partly thinking things through. And do you know what? If you don't have the time to put that thought in, or you question it, that's why there are lots of good professionals around that you can get an opinion of. Giving Carlos's example, I mean, Carlos is in this job every day, but when he wants a second opinion, he's not shy to reach out, get a consultant in, and have that second opinion. Why should small businesses be so worried about doing the same thing? If you had a lump, would you try and self-diagnose, or would you go to the doctor? Sometimes...
I think that
even bigger question is, why does the industry expect people to learn SEO in order to hire an SEO. What's the point in hiring them if you've learned how to do it?
Well, I mean,
Isn't that why you hire a professional?
Well,
So
you know what? That's a good point, Terry. I work with Carlos every day, right? And I'm biased because, you know, we're part of the same team and we work with the same clients. But in my opinion, Carlos knows more about SEO than anyone I've ever met. But he's still reaching out to people like you guys and trying to learn more. He's constantly trying to learn more. But whereas, you know, an average everyday person isn't going to have those connections. They're not going to know who to ask. And Ammon, it's like you said, right? If I had a lump, I damn well wouldn't go on WebMD to find out what the hell it is, because I'd be convinced in a matter of 30 seconds that I have scurvy or bursitis or some sort of horrible disease that's uncurable.
I always use the similar, you know, it's like UFC fighters, you know, to get better. And I think that that's the one thing about people in the SEO, that they don't want to reach out to other people or pay for consultation of somebody that may be better than them. I don't know what it is, but you know, in any other industry, people want to learn, people want to get better. It's like what the conversation we were having last week about, you know, some kind of certification. You know, you've got to keep getting better, and that's why I do reach out to. I mean, we're on a different kind of subject here, but it does all come back to, you know, being able to know about these things to be able to help the clients decide on different things more so.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I totally agree. So let me ask each of you this, and I'd love to know what you all have to say. You're a small business owner, and you know nothing about SEO. You just know what it is, and you know that you need it. Where do you start? Do you start online? Do you start on forums? Do you find a local SEO in your area and hire someone for a couple of hours of their time and ask them some questions? Let's start with you, Terry. What would you do if you owned a small business and knew you needed better results in the search engines? Where would you start?
Oh, that's a tricky question, because I actually have a site that's for those people, SEO pros. That's why it was formed, a place where, other SEOs, when they can't do the work themselves, they want somewhere to send people that, you know, isn't sending them to the competition, and they know the people are being vetted. That's why, you know, that's what I would suggest.
Cool. SEOpros.com, right?
Org.
SEOpros.org.
Yep. .com is my other. It sells stuff.
.com's a Russian dating site. Got it.
Yeah, I was always upset that there wasn't an SEOpros.org/ASM for the really exciting professionals.
So,
I'll tell you the smartest approach I ever heard to this, and it was somebody who had a little bit to invest. It wasn't the smallest of businesses, but it was a business that wasn't huge. It was starting out, but they did it really smart. They reached out to 10 consultants, and they said to each of them, look, I'm not going to hire you, but give me the 5 names you would recommend. And they took those lists, and they approached. They bought the consultancy on who to talk to. And they found a great vendor. They'd had it explained to them, this is somebody that's in your area, specialises in your niche, and we respect them as an SEO. That's a smart way to do it. And that was 2000. You know, that knowledge is out there. I think what you've got to stop doing is, there's a lot of businesses treat SEO as something that it's complicated. I'm scared of this. So what I want to do is outsource it, arm's reach, and forget about it. And they're not trying to learn, and they're not trying to find a partner. They're trying to push it away. And that's the wrong approach. Find somebody you can work with. Doesn't matter what level of SEO they are, if you've got that personal connection. So I'd say if you're a very small business, start by looking for some of your local hookups and hangouts. Look for some of the local vendors. Talk to one of them. Because most of the good local people, if they meet something that's beyond them, they will help you find somebody who's that bit up the food chain if you need it.
Yeah, I would also, Ammon, add to that finding someone who can do a good site audit for you and start from there, because they'll tell you what you need and it'll come from a reputable source, and you start with a foundation, because a lot of the stuff that's sold isn't even needed. I don't know how many RFPs that when I was looking through it, they asked for stuff that they really didn't need, like a site that had 1 million links to it and was asking for link building. I mean, fuck, come on. You need to look at a different strategy other than just building links.
We've got an interesting comment here on Facebook. It's from Wendy, and she says, it seems that when people find out how they can abuse a search tactic to, in the short term, get juice to their website, Google eventually catches on and makes a rule to prevent that from happening. And it seems to me that Google's basically in reaction mode. Once someone abuses a tactic, they make new rules to combat it. And like Ammon said, people need to use their common sense and just use their gut when building links. If it seems wrong, don't do it.
Hey, if you read it on a blog, Google already knows about, and it's got about a 6-month life expectancy.
The more people are talking about a tactic, the more certain you are Google knows about it. And the more people talking about it and doing it, the more certain you can be that Google are already working on closing that loophole.
When everybody, sorry, Ammon, when everybody was doing infographics and it was the big thing, someone we know in Google more or less told us that they see that as just a trendy trick. And that was before it was announced by them that, yeah.
Half of them are still doing it.
They're talking about it. If it's trendy, it's going to be spam in 6 months or less.
But was it on Tuesday, Thursday, whatever it was, SlideShare announced that you can now submit infographics to SlideShare. Boom. You know, I mean, there it goes. That's it. You know, it's just close the doors, say goodnight.
Believe me, people are really, really good at finding the most obscure stuff going. You only have to look at today's meme. You know, whatever is the meme of today. Who came up with Doug? You know, you've got these memes coming along all the time. They are so obscure, and yet they travel because they connect with people. If your content does the same, it will get links. It will get people talking about it. Sure, if you've got a site, you're starting from day one. Nobody knows about it. It's got no links. It's got no audience. It's slow to get going, and yet in the first few instances, in the first couple of months, you're going to be building from scratch, which means talk to the audience you want. Imagine somebody you know well and talk to them and build that relation with them. And then everybody who connects with that, who feels like that person does, is getting that reference. You may have to buy some links to get some initial traffic. But the whole point is, that's fine. It's AdWords, whatever. You know, you're doing it legit. You're not trying to make that the sole cause. What you're doing is you're giving a push to start the ball rolling. It's the ball rolling that's going to have the effect. Does that make sense?
I mean, this is why I'm so grateful that I get to work with Carlos. What you guys deal with is in a constant flux. It changes every minute. It changes every day. The side of the business that I work with, there's best practices in terms of how to make pages work well. And all you have to do is test to figure them out. You just keep testing and testing, and you're going to figure out what's going to work best. You're going to figure out, that you want to use, serif fonts for your body copy, sans serif fonts for your headlines and your H1s, just because they're more readable. You're going to figure out spacing. You're going to figure out how to make your content work better. You're going to figure out to use call to actions on your e-commerce sites and be clear and confident, let people know what to do and what to expect. It's just a matter, for me, of split testing, just doing tons and tons of split testing and talking to people, right? But what you guys are dealing with changes every minute, and I think it's much more challenging than the side of the business.
Yeah, but it goes back to what Barrie was saying before. If tactics may change, but if you're kind of living and dying by the hand of Google, you're already kind of in a losing battle. You need to be thinking of it in a much wider perspective of, it's like going back to the conversation we had last week with Ammon.
Yeah.
Google should be maybe the entry point for the first time, and then after that, they shouldn't, the visitors should be coming back, and you shouldn't really be thinking about, rankings or this or that. You need to have a wide spectrum of kind of traffic entry mechanisms, and then not be relying on Google at all. So I don't know. The way I look at it, it isn't in a constant state of flux for me or for the SEO team. It's we go about things. Rankings change and maybe tactics might change, but very slightly.
The thing is, we touched on this in our last chat. It's one thing come up against time and time again. This is a marketing-based profession. Marketing is always about doing something different. It's always about a changing landscape. Look, Coke run a great ad. It's a brilliant ad. It's a great ad. Pepsi can't run the same ad and just put their logo on it. It won't work. We've seen that message. Lightning has struck. That's it. You can't strike the same place again. You've got to do that little thing different. And all marketing is based on that. So, yeah, that SEO changes, well, marketing changes. Every single other person doing marketing changes the landscape. People's expectations, what they're going to find unique, what they're going to find clever, what they're going to find funny, is all going to be changing on a daily basis according to what ad they've seen today.
That's a shift that the search engines had to adopt because it was a change in the way people searched. Search engines don't always drive the boat.
I kind of see it as them future-proofing Bill too, in that this is more of a mobile model for searching because it's conversational. So they were actually adjusting to users who are now using more mobile devices.
Right. So SEOs tend to be the last in line to react to those types of things. And when we start seeing blog posts about how you should be adding frequently asked questions sections to your website because you want to optimize for those conversational type queries. I'm sorry, I laughed my head off and turned the computer off for a little while and just walk away and say, hey.
I just want to refocus on the question that I asked originally, which was, what is your best advice on how to bounce back from penalties? And the answer I got was, if you have penalties, you're an idiot. And granted, you may be an idiot, but if you're in that position right now, what would you guys recommend?
First off, asking myself why did you build the site in the first place? What problems does it solve? Who does it help? And if you can't answer those questions, it may be time to bulldoze the whole thing and start over again. Because
I'd be wondering why I was building and doing my marketing based on what the search engine wants, because, hell, they never bought nothing from me, ever, on a website.
Yeah, I think that's what Ammon started. I think that's what Ammon started to say is, why did you get penalized in the first place?
Yeah, I think you might have been asking from the perspective of, okay, there's a number of clients that have come over to us that have had penalties, and I think you're maybe asking from the perspective of folks that maybe have hired an agency before, Eric.
Yeah, for sure. That's exactly. Yep.
Some kind of constructive points, because I know that Ammon, you're not a big fan of the disavow tool or kind of using that at all.
No.
See, we have used it.
If Google have broken the web to such an extent where people linking to me that I've got nothing over can affect my site, then I shouldn't be applying a band-aid to Google's broken leg.
Right.
Google depends on getting these links right. I am not going to patch to cover up the damage. I want Google to see it themselves. Now, I haven't had a client hit by bad links. I've had some that have tried, but it's all about building those good links. And
we've got a client that came to us after a penalty, and probably took us about 4 months to get the penalty lifted, but we did use the disavow. But it's hard to say not to do such a thing when the traffickers bounce back and is now double what it was, and now they're generating online sales again. When at the end of the day, the dollar, or the pound, the pound or whatever is key to businesses, and this business was ready to close the doors like in 3 or 4 months' time.
Yeah.
We got the business back. So I totally understand what you're saying. In an ideal world, we wouldn't have had to do it, but I'm glad, and the client's glad that we did.
When Disavow came out, I was exact same as Ammon, and I was probably louder about it and about how you shouldn't go near it with 100 barge pole. But when a couple of clients came to me who had penalties, it had to be used. And in trying the clean-up process and reconsideration requests before using the disavow tool, there was no success. And then after using it, there was success, and those clients started to recover. When it's somebody's livelihood, when somebody is requiring traffic to come to that site, to make sales, to make money, to pay staff, to put money in people's pockets, roofs over people's homes, you've got to step back and look at it for what it is. I agree, we shouldn't be the ones that have to fix that problem, but there is a tool there that we can use to help these people, and in using it, we can help these people. Back to Eric's original question, if you've been hit by a penalty, or you think you've been hit by a penalty, and you're looking for some advice, you need to speak to someone who knows what they're doing. You need to speak to someone who can showcase that they've helped other people out of similar situations, not someone who thinks that they might know the theory of how to do it, because they're just another person who's going to get you in a whole lot of trouble. You need to find people who have got experience of doing it, who can then actually help you get to where you need to be. And
if you're the end client, the business with that penalty, and you're not, don't just rely on what the SEO or the agency's telling you. Actually get testimonials and call the people up, because there's a heck of a lot of analysis that is needed to be done before you ever go near. I remember sitting next to you at PubCon when that thing was announced, Eric, and we were, surprised when it was announced. But it was a year, or more than a year, about 12 months, 14 months before we ever went near it. I was totally of the same opinion of Ammon, not wanting to go near it. But again, we resorted to it, and then it's been very, very beneficial for probably about 4 or 5 clients now.
Yes.
Can I add something? I'd say there's 2 times when you want to use a disavow. You cannot get the link removed. That's one reason. And don't even bother with the disavow unless you have a penalty in the Google amendment.
Yep.
It will not do very much for a penguin penalty.
Yeah, they'll do nothing for a penguin.
Well, not until they the penguin.
Yeah.
But basically, the disavow file is not for anything other than you couldn't get the link removed, so you have to tell them, don't count this. But they stress over and over that you want to get the link removed if you can, because that removes it from the picture altogether. And when I disavow a site, I disavow it for one reason. The whole site is crap. For me, there is not a case where it's one page you're going to disavow, because
the domain.
It's got to be the domain, because you're saying, I don't want any links from this site. That's making sure you can never get okay, there's a third place I would use a disavow as well. Negative SEO. There, I put it out there.
Just going back to the point you brought up, Eric, as well as, it's not something that they should tackle themselves. for sure. You know, on the 4 or 5 occasions we've been successful with it, it's not been on the first attempt or the second attempt. We've had to upload, you know, things to Google Docs and share spreadsheets, you know, and so when you're doing the reconsideration request, you know, you're actually posting links to shared documents. I mean, that's the only times that we've been successful. So it's not just uploading the disavowed. I mean, you know,
right. Yeah, it's not just uploading a spreadsheet full of links and saying, "Woohoo, I'm done."
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, what I find interesting though, Carlos, is that I know that you've been approached by some clients and you've gone through, you know, and done an analysis of their site. You've looked at what is visible in Webmaster Tools, and it says there's no penalty. There's no penalty. You guys don't have any problem, and yet their traffic has disappeared. Their entire website is being penalized somewhere, and yet it says that there's nothing. And I guess that comes back to what we talked about a little bit today, and also what we talked about last week with Ammon, is that when you go down that road, you're playing Google's game, right?
We've got lots of different kinds of penalties. You've got to bear in mind, you've got, what, 4 or 5 levels? You've got the automated on-the-fly penalties, which Google aren't even aware of. You know, you've got the ones where it's not a penalty against you at all, it's a penalty against something you're doing that Google aren't even aware. Like that thing I mentioned earlier about counterbalancing links, where if you've got a lot of links that seem to be bad that Google's automatically lowering, it might be lowering more than those links were lifting, which is overall giving you a minus effect, right? Google's going to no penalty on you for that. Of course it has. It's built into the algorithm. You've got others that are kind of like that. You've got Panda and Penguin, which automatically run and hit sites. It hasn't taken an engineer to do it. And you've got the ones where somebody's actually gone in as a result of some complaints or some issues, had a look, and then manually penalised you. And, you know, that top one, yeah, that's the one you're really going to have to work to get out. That's the one the disavow tool was built for. But not every penalty is about links, and I think far too often, because there is this link removal tool. Oh look, this is the tool to fix penalties. Well, it isn't. It's the tool to fix one kind of issue. Links, bad links. If you have built loads of crap links, you know who you are out there. If you've built loads of crap links, yeah, you left a great big footprint that you did so, yeah, you're going to need the disavow tool. I say it's a rubbish thing, because I left a footprint like that. I don't mass buy. I'm not going to join a buddy links. I'm not going to advertise that I'm buying links. I'm not going to buy links in places that sell links. That kind of crap I've never done, because it leaves a footprint. Everything in SEO is all about, does this leave a footprint? Every shortcut, is this a recognizable footprint that Google can detect automatically? If it is, then when it hits, Google don't even have to tell you. They will hit everything that matches that footprint. So try not to ever match a spammer's footprint. Don't leave the same footprint as he does, because when they go sending out that sniffer dog to track all those footprints, it's going to bite you. You've got lots of different kinds of filters. There's lots of kinds of ways of dealing with penalties. And the very first thing you need to do when you're dealing with penalties is get a really reliable SEO and make sure you've got a penalty. I have seen so many SEOs say they've got a penalty. 80% of even professional SEOs are wrong. They haven't. They've tripped an automatic filter, dampener, but it's not a penalty, and they can fix it themselves in seconds.
There's a comment here from John McDermott. He says, don't build one egg, spread the love. And I think that talks to some of what we've been talking about. If you've got a website that's got issues, why would you only have one website? I mean, isn't it sort of like Monopoly? If the person with the most properties, with the best content, and that engages the best is going to win.
Sometimes, but you know, how many other sites do you think Amazon need? How many side sites have Google got? Sometimes you're building that one big brand instead, and promoting one website is hard. When you've got 6, you can't now do them all the same way, or you've created a link network to promote these 6 different businesses as 6 different businesses. You can't put a boilerplate approach to boost all 6 because that now is a boilerplate. It's a footprint. It gets discounted. It's harder to promote 2 sites than 1. It's that simple.
It's complicated to do it because Google is a registrar. So as soon as you register those domains, they know. Unless you're smart enough to A, use a different name on each one, B, put it on a different C block. It's, you know, it's not an easy task. It's not as easy as just going and making 6 websites.
But sometimes it makes sense to actually take something like a General Motors and have a Ford and Chevy and Buick and Cadillac and create different brand perceptions of those and appeal to different audiences. But you have to be smart about doing that. You have to do it in a way where if you're going to be doing all that extra work, it pays off. There needs to be a real strategy behind it.
Yeah. You know, the reason that works is because they are treating them as different businesses. You know, and that's the core thing that anyone can take away at any level. You know, Chrysler isn't just trying to raise off of another GM brand.
Right.
It's got its own identity. It's got its own designers. It's got its own audience and appeal. You know, the driver of a Cadillac is not like the driver of some other brands. You know, people who've got this real brand loyalty, it's because the company identity is there. If you're going to create different sites, it's got to be along that kind of reason. It's because you want to target an audience that your main brand, your main, you know, personality just doesn't quite gel with, so you create another one. Or you can look at the consumer electronics industry, JVC, the high quality, you know, manufacturer of the ones who invented VHS. They've got Panasonic. Now, Panasonic is not only, you know, the same kind of people behind it, it's almost exactly the same components. It's almost exactly the same products, but they use a slightly higher grade of components in the JVC to the Panasonic. Why create 2 brands? Because they didn't want people thinking that JVC was getting cheaper. They didn't want a cheap JVC range. They wanted a lower budget thing that wasn't about the quality of JVC. JVC was their quality brand, Panasonic was their home user, more economic brand. And lots of companies have done that.
When Cadillac came out with the Eldorado, which was half car, half pickup truck, very few people bought it. Cadillac's not the brand you go to buy a pickup truck.
Right, that's like Porsche's SUV.
Yeah.
You do wonder if it was for farmers with really posh cattle who wanted to sit in the back of a Cadillac. You know, maybe that was the whole point.
Maybe.
But it kind of reminds me of something. This is a mistake that people often make in marketing generally. And the idea of, you know, feature creep, of doing something different because, you know, we think it's got more appeal, it'll double it. The classic example is browsers with built-in email clients. You know, Opera out there is a good browser. It's got a great email client. But people preferred Firefox and, you know, Google Mail, Gmail. Why? When you create something that's 2 products, unless you need both at the exact same time, you need a new one of both. You haven't doubled your audience. It's not now people who want a browser and people who want an email. Because they feel like they're having to buy double. They feel like they're getting a load of crap they didn't want. So instead you've halved your audience. You've only now got people who want both in one place. And I think there's a real important lesson. When businesses are thinking of branching out, is this adding to your audience, or is it actually making a new niche, which is only people who want both things? Is this turning away the people who want one product or the other? I'll tell you what, guys, we are over the hour. I think it might be time to start wrapping up.
Let's go all day, man. This is fun. I don't want to do real work.
Well, guys, I'm going to take a break and grab some coffee.
Thanks, guys.
Good talking, boys.